rebound, healthy energy drink with all the B vitamins and the rest of it. And then there's also Pollen Burst that I love. All available at InfoWarsTeam.com. The best products out there. You know, I've really only been following this intensely for 3 months, and I've lost over 37 pounds. Everybody can see the change. People were blown away that saw me in person up in Dallas. And I'm going to continue to lose weight. And it's because they don't even advertise these as weight loss. It's just when you're getting the vitamins and minerals you need, because the food's depleted of vitamins and minerals, suddenly you're not as hungry. So it's amazing. InfoWarsTeam.com. You can sign up and become a distributor and get discounts, or you can just buy right off the site, InfoWarsTeam.com. And I want to thank all those that have been trying it out because, A, you're supporting our broadcast, what we're doing, but B, and more importantly for you, you're finding out I don't promote something unless I believe in it. I want to continue with a whole laundry list of questions I've got here for you, Matt, but what do you say to people that say that you're a fearmonger for bringing up the fact that, well, I mentioned this earlier when you first got on, Wired Magazine, your next car will drive itself. And now they're talking about these new robot cars that are on the roads across the country and robot 18-wheelers. They're talking about not letting humans drive cars because these are, quote, going to be safer. And then now they're saying the whole Air Force is going to be drone, all the combat stuff. So humans are allowing ourselves to be locked out of things now and allowing a tiny technocratic elite to control things. But then what about the other problem that as we become even more dependent and everything being centralized, we'll get to be like, you know, people in that movie WALL-E, where we're just a bunch of obese creatures that can't even brush our own teeth, and basically this giant automated system is doing it for us. What's your view on the fearmonger angle and this whole technocracy?
Well, as far as a fearmonger, I say, was it fearmongering when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for 50 years said that New Orleans was a disaster waiting to happen, that the levees needed replacing? I mean, it's not fearmonger, it's just reality. And it wasn't a question of if the levees would fail, it was a question of when would the storm hit that would make them fail. So we're in the same boat. We've got this incredibly complex system in our world, and the more complex it gets, the easier it is to make it fail. I mean, look at the space shuttle. You know, a couple of O-rings and the space shuttle blew up, okay? Look at Fukushima. Oh, we didn't know. It's like, come on, you're on world's most seismically active place in the world, and you didn't know you might get a big earthquake and you might get a big tsunami? I mean, it's like, come on, get off it. And so we're just, and the problem is that right now we get such a linked world economy that when it goes over the cliff, it's not like the Anasazis, where when it went over the cliff, yeah, a little piece of the world starved to death and disease and famine killed them off and their cities were abandoned and, they moved elsewhere. The ones that were still alive moved elsewhere and life went on. Now it's like you take the planet down, there's no elsewhere to go. I mean, that's like that biodome I was talking about. $200 million can't keep 6 people alive for 2 years. I mean, come on, we screw this one up, we're in trouble. As far as the world economy, I can't imagine it not going down. I don't see any indicators of the magic bullet that's going to pull us out of it without a drastic change in the way we do business in the world to where actually keeping our world going in sustainable ways is the number one priority. I mean, the problem is the people who got the money, think about it. If you're a corporate CEO, your number one priority is to maximize profit. Well, what does that mean? That means going to that part of the world where it's slave wages, where there's no health care, there's no concern for the environment, and it means taking those natural resources of the world and capitalizing them as fast and as efficiently as possible for maximum profit before the next guy gets to it. Because if you don't get those fish, you don't get those trees, you don't get that oil before somebody else does, they make the money instead of you. So what does it mean?
So it's a mad rush.
Right. It's like who can get it all first before it all collapses, before we all hit the wall, before the giant train wreck happens. And we got to make the most money as fast and as efficient as possible before the train wreck happens. Well, that's great for those guys in the top 1%, but it's obviously killing the middle class in America because it means that, like Steve Jobs said, well, we used to automate, and he used to be seen as this model of a guy who still made stuff in America. And they automated iPods and iPhones, and they made them all here with automation and made in America and designed in America. Well, then they said, if we want to change things faster and quicker, changing automated systems takes a lot of time and money. But little guys and in white suits in slave conditions in China, they can just, they're human beings. They're not machines.
Humans are still better than the robots. Humans are still better than the robots. Let me bring this up. The reason I the reason I have to agree with you is that the Rockefellers, the real elite, are all building giant private bunkers. Major governments are building giant bunkers with reactors and underground reservoirs. The billionaires are all racing to hide out in the countryside, whether it's John Wayne's family or whether it's the guy that made Avatar, James Cameron. And I've talked to some of these elites, and they say, yeah, this is all going to collapse. And they were telling me this 5 years ago, and all moving to the middle of nowhere or small islands with electrified fences around them with machine guns. And now it's in the news they're all leaving because they believe in collapse. So the system's been so good at consolidating power. And Larry Summers, he wants to be the head of the World Bank. It's now coming out when he said, hey, ship all the toxic waste to Brazil and places. That way we'll reduce their population. Ha, ha, ha. I mean, these really are a bunch of sickos. And so, yeah, now they're trying to race out of the country because they've been so good at consolidating things. So you mentioned what happened with Fukushima. People actually said, I looked it up, a decade ago or more, hey, these are old reactors. They've been here for 30 years at that time, now 40 almost. You're storing all the waste here. It's on a major fault line. There's tsunamis. If there is an earthquake, it'll cause a tsunami. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they said, don't worry about it.
It was all predicted.
Exactly. All predicted, but they're fearmongers.
Right. Fearmongers. No, we got it on. You guys worry about something, then you're a fearmonger. Well, it's like, screw them. They say I'm a fearmonger. That's their right. Everyone's got their right to an opinion. They can have their opinion. I just shrug it off, and I just say, this is reality. Jesus said you got eyes and hear not, and ears and hear not, and eyes and see not. So it's like you do your best to put it out there. And that's what my books are about. I'm giving people the information they need to do their best for their family, to be prepared to deal with crisis and change in the world. And I talk about these things, and some people say, well, you're an Al Gore wind-up, because I actually believe that we're screwing up our planet. Well, go outside this winter and tell me if this is a normal winter in most parts of the country.
Well, listen, it's different. Here's the deal. There's obviously problems with the environment. Al Gore's solutions of paying him money like an indulgence or something, that's the fraud. Right. I mean, Ken Lay came up with this global tax. My point is they co-opt the environmental movement.
Right. The movement, the problem is that the momentum of business as usual and the way we did it, that got the people in the 1% to the being in the 1%, they have a huge stake in keeping that machine going the way it's been going. Problem is, it's killing the rest of us and killing the world. So,
but the 1% know it's not working. I mean, the 1/10 of 1%, the real elite, they're digging in like it's the end of the world, calling us kooks if we warn people.
But they got the money to do it, and we don't. I mean, I'm in a situation where if I'd spent them, if instead of writing my book, I just went out and worried about myself, and bought the land and built the off-grid thing. But instead I racked up debt while I was writing my book and still haven't even broken, 15 years working on it, still haven't broken even because of the debt I built up in the beginning. And my first publisher was bankrupt and never paid me, so that didn't help. But people say I'm in it for the money. And it's like, no. You asked me why I did this? Well, back in 1997, I'd had a 20-year practice of mostly daily prayer and meditation, not fanatic about it. I'm an MIT guy. I don't normally see and hear things, but I just made a generic request for guidance and inspiration. And on that morning, I got a bomb dropped in my lap. I received in my head instantaneously a pictorial storyboard outline for this mammoth project that eventually became my first book, When Technology Fails, to guide people to deal with these coming times. I didn't say, God talked to me today. I'm going to go out and do it. No,
everybody who has instincts or an inner compass knows that things are wrong. I want to talk about that with you, then we'll go to phone calls on the other side. Everybody who's tuned in and has discernment can feel the danger, and now we're seeing it manifest.
You don't need me to tell you that humanity is in a deep...
Okay, this is a little short 6-minute segment. We're going to come back in the next long segment, the final segment after that, and go to Janice, Merrill, Otter, Michael, Ty, and others that are patiently holding here today for Matthew Stein, our guest. I have had things in my life happen, like where I have a dream of being mugged, and tell people about the dream, and then 6 months later walk around a corner and the guy wearing the exact same shirt and the same thing happens to me. There's a lot of stuff going on in this world we don't understand. Or somebody has a feeling not to walk out in the road and all of a sudden a car comes shooting by really fast. Anybody who doesn't, now they've proven in scientific studies, you can look it up. I even saw, Big Scientific American, I think last month had that as one of its top stories, is that there is a sixth sense. But expanding on that, that's called your gut. Any good police detective will tell you they've got that. But continuing, you're saying, just deep down, you knew something was going on, you investigated it, but you've got the government's own reports that you quote in your piece, in one of your books, where, in fact, list some of those reports where they admit that a solar flare or EMP would do the things you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have some of the top scientists in the world who urged me to write my article, 400 Chernobyls, that you posted on your website, and it's on my website, whentechfails.com. And they're saying, Matt, so far, since 2008, Congress has been voting on on different bills to deal with the EMP solar storm problem, where we're basically open to the end of the world as we know it for a guaranteed solar event that's guaranteed to happen. It happens every, average 75 to 100 years, but they could happen 2 5 years apart and 2 100 years apart.
Sure, but you list some of the government's own reports, and I'm on the road, I don't have your book in front of me. What are some of those reports?
Well, one is the Meditech report. It's the influence of geomagnetic storms on the U.S. grid. And that's there's a link to that report at the end of my 400 Chernobyls in the footnotes. And that's one of the storms, and that's John Kappenman. And that was done at Meditech under the auspices of the Oak Ridge National Labs, and it was third-party checked by by another national laboratory down there in New Mexico. Also took a look at it, and they verified the response. And basically, it's saying. And
I know the Pentagon's put out reports. They put out reports as well, so they know all of this, and they really just don't even have a plan to deal with it.
No, they have a plan. They have a plan. There's the EMP Commission, which was a bipartisan commission of scientists and military personnel and various top-notch people put together. And so Dr. William Graham, I keep wanting to call him Billy Graham, but that's a different guy, different doctor. Anyway, William Graham, PhD, he was Reagan's science advisor, and he's said he agrees 100% with my 400 Chernobyl analysis, and he's totally behind me on that. And he hasn't succeeded in getting them to make the things. They have a plan for about $1 billion. They could protect our grid with this new technology.
Sure, what I meant is it hasn't been adopted. They plan to ship.
They haven't done a damn thing. They haven't actually, other than talk about it and think about and vote on it and vote it down, they haven't done a damn thing to actually implement it. So we're still the same sitting duck that they were when they came out with that EMP report years ago. And the Meditech report was 2010. The EMP Commission started doing stuff 2004, 2006, 2008, 2010. And the more they look at it, the more they verify that we're a sitting duck. We're waiting for the end of the world as we know it, and we're not doing it. For the price of a single stealth bomber, they could fix this. They could put backup fuel supplies for a year at every nuclear installation and backup bunker, an EMP-hardened container, with backup cooling system and power generating systems to keep the cooling going. See, when you turn off a nuclear power plant, it's not like flipping a switch. You got to keep those rods cool for 3 to 5 years or they'll melt down. You don't keep that water cooled and flowing, then they're going to melt down. There's going to be a problem. And not only that...
And if there's a breakdown of society, we're looking at 400 Chernobyls.
Right, you're looking at 400 around the world.
But they don't care. Like you said, already 9 out of 10 reactors are already leaking one way or another. It's crazy.